partly sunny skies. Once again, at 5 p.m., Grand Rapids was 84 degrees under most. West at 6 knots and the temperature was 74 degrees. At the South Haven Lighthouse.
Commissioner German, would you be in a position to... Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission meeting for July 27th, 2021. Before we begin the proceedings, anyone who would like to join us in prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please feel free to do so. This evening, Commissioner German, would you please lead us in an opening prayer?
All right, Mayor. All right, let's bow our heads. Father God in heaven, we just come to you right now today in this gathering here at the City Commission meeting here. We ask that you look over us and guide us. Thank everyone for being here. I ask that you protect each and every one of us, our families, our siblings, our loved ones, as you brought us through a hard time during this pandemic. Now that we're here to conduct business and do what's in the best interest of the city, the families, and the community, we ask that you give us the right sound mind to make good decisions and guide the city forward, to be honest, to be transparent, to be equal with whatever we do. And we just ask, Father in heaven, that you touch us and protect the loved ones and those who have lost loved ones. So in the name of Jesus, we pray in the blessings of God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, you bet.
May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Ramsey?
Here.
Here.
Commissioner Muskegon?
Here.
Commissioner Emery?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Gallren?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hood?
Here. And before we proceed any further, I'd like to congratulate and introduce our new Deputy City Manager who is with us tonight through these proceedings. Hi, everyone. I'd like to give you Leanne Mikesell, our new Deputy City Manager. Congratulations. At this time, we have public comment on any agenda item. Each individual that wishes to speak can come forward. We just need your name, your address, and you're allotted 3 minutes of comment time. We do not engage or debate at the time of comments, either on agenda items or at public comment at the end of the meeting. But for these items at the beginning, we will take that information and that will help inform our discussion as a group. So I do have one individual immediately that had put down for an agenda item, and we will take all comers after that. But Mr. Ed Bailey. Good morning. Good evening, sir.
How are you?
Good, sir. Thank you. And in which item are you addressing?
I am addressing the Harbortown storage container.
And that would be under unfinished business, item A. Okay, go right ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, your name and address again.
Yep, that's part of it here. Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Ed Bailey, and I live at 1410 East Harbortown Circle. I am here to encourage you to not to approve the amendment to the Harbortown PUD as to allowing storage containers. First of all, I am in total agreement with the Planning Commission's recommendation to deny the request at the June 10th meeting and again at the July 15th Planning Commission meeting. Notice the approval to deny the request happened twice. Second, I am in total agreement with Barb Vutkus with her letter to the Planning Commission outlining the Harbortown Condominium Association's opposition to the storage container. I would also like to shed a little more light on this situation. At the June 10th Planning Commission meeting, Mr. Franzik was asked how many storage containers Dockers is allowed on the property. Mr. Franzik's response was, since it was zoned commercial, they would be allowed 3. The falsehood in this response to the question is that the Dockers property is not zoned commercial. It is zoned as part of the Harbortown PUD LR. From page 136 of the zoning ordinance, the intent of planned unit developments in the Lakefront Recreation District is to allow mixed land uses which are compatible to each other while prohibiting non-residential uses which would not be compatible or harmonious with lakefront recreation activities or residential dwellings. So the issue here is, what does a storage container, decorated or not, have to do with being compatible with a PUD-LR? Quite obviously, it doesn't and should not be approved. I would like to remind the commissioners that the Harbortown Condominium Association, Harbortown Marina, Pigeon Key Marina, the Pigeon, and Dockers are all part of the PUD-LR. Dockers is not their own entity. They are one part of the PUD-LR. Decisions need to be made for the benefit of all members of this PUD-LR, not just one business enterprise as has been done in the past. To keep the intent and integrity of the Harbortown planned unit development, it is imperative that the storage container amendment to the PUD not be adopted. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to any of the agenda items?
Good evening. Michael Hull is 903 Turner Avenue, Muskegon, Michigan.
And your item you're speaking on?
Same one that was just spoke on.
Very good, thank you.
Item A. I too have to agree. I'm not really impressed with these containers popping up in town. There's no good way to make them look pretty, in my mind. And I'm just totally against any more container being built anywhere in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other residents that would like to speak on any one of the agenda items before we get into the order of business? Please come right on up.
My name is Glenda Moore. I live at 1236 Isabella. I would like to comment on the zoning of the,
Is that the one on Robert Street?
yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
The one on the corner of Roberts and Isabella. They want to have a medical facility there, but yet they say they aren't going to do anything medical. I have lived there for 46 years, and we've tried to keep our neighborhood up. I came to the planning and zoning. I was treated very rudely by the chairman, and so also was another resident that lives right next door to Roberts. We take pride in our neighborhood, but we were not informed. We were unaware of what they were doing at that building. They did not reach out to us. They were not transparent in any way as to tell us what they had planned to do. And they bombarded us with it at the meeting. We were unprepared. because we didn't know what the meeting was going to be about. They had all kinds of people come and speak for it, and honestly, I'm not against the program. We need programs like that, but I think it needs more study, and I think it also needs to have the input of the neighborhood. The neighborhood needs to know about what's going on. It's caused parking issues, and that corner has so many near accidents and accidents. We don't even have a stop sign. Please consider not making it a medical facility. That leaves it wide open. It presents the assumption of trouble down the road. I would like you guys to reconsider. Let the neighborhood get together with Fresh Coast, talk about this, and maybe we can come to a solution before it comes to being zoned a medical facility. And I just personally think that is our right. Thank you for listening.
Thanks very much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Lockhart. I live at 1080 Green Street, and I'd also like to comment on the same subject as the last speaker did.
Very good. The rezoning on Roberts. Okay.
Pardon me?
The rezoning on Roberts.
Yes.
Okay.
I received a notice of public hearing. I was unable to attend. I had to go into the office that night. I did check with some of my near neighbors on whether or not they were notified. And I personally hadn't found anyone else that received the same notice in the mail that I did. I did call back to the zoning office and was told that they sent them out to everyone in this perimeter. I didn't check with everyone in the perimeter, but my nearby neighbors were not notified of this. And my home is I'm just the second house from the corner of Isabella and Green. I've been there 3 years, and I heard good and bad of the neighborhood when I was considering the purchase. I heard what it used to be. It had some troubled times, and now it was back to rising on the good side again. In this situation, I've also heard I should say I'm not completely comfortable with the usage as this lady had spoke of in the neighborhood, and I'm aware of 2 other properties, one just behind me, I believe owned by the same people, Coastal Development, and one down the street that, to my knowledge, are being used in the same purpose. The home behind my house houses men. Home down the street is for females. And as this lady expressed the concern of the safety of the neighborhood, I mean, programs are needed, but do they need to be put in a residential neighborhood where kids are playing and up and down the streets, and they come and go as they please in these places? You know, in the 2 homes as well as whatever being zoned a medical facility kind of leaves it wide open for uses.
Your
And
3 minutes are up.
okay.
Thank you.
And so that's my concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Are there any other individuals that would like to speak on any of the agenda topics at this time before we go into our business? Public comment for agenda items only at this time, Roger. Okay?
Part of the applicant for topic, do we speak now or do we speak when the topic's called?
When the topic's called. Okay? Very good. Thank you. At this time, we come to our consent agenda. And Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to receive and review the consent agenda. Are there any items you wish to have removed for any further discussion on the consent agenda? Commissioner German?
Yes, item C.
Item C.
Yes.
Commissioner Emery?
Item F.
Item F. Are there any other items for further discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. Commissioner Rinsma-Savinga.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented minus items C, F, and F.
Support. It has been moved by Commissioner Rinsma-Savinga, supported by the Vice Mayor, to approve the consent agenda as presented minus items C, F, and was there another one?
I thought that was it.
Just those two. Okay, very good. Minus items C and F. Any discussion on the remainder? Roll call, please.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Rinsma-Sibiga,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Gallren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item C, Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the request from the Kingdom citizens to waive up to $400 in special event fees for the the peace event.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner German, supported by Commissioner Johnson, to approve the request from Kingdom citizens to waive up to $400 in special event fees for the Increase the Peace event. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I don't know if anyone can speak on this, but reason I pulled this off the agenda because the young man that's putting on this event, he reached out to me as the commissioner in that ward. He's looking to bring the community together due to the horrific gun violence and crime that's been going on in the city of Muskegon. He's asking these fees be waived because this is a first attempt for an event like this, but he wants the support of the city. And as a commissioner, anything that's positive and for the betterment of the citizens, the community, I told him I would support this. So this is my reasoning for actually bringing this item to you all. So
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a good spotlight on a very, very good effort. Any additional comments or observations on this item? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Rinsma-Sibiga,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Gallren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Commissioner German.
yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item F, Commissioner Emery.
I move to authorize the clerk to sign the attestation and approve the event and live music contingent upon a meeting and approval with the special event staff.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Emery, seconded by Commissioner Johnson, to authorize the clerk to sign the attestation and approve the event and live music contingent upon a meeting and approval with the special event staff. Go right ahead, Commissioner Emery.
I like this idea. The only problem I have with it is that we have a strict noise ordinance that starts at 11 o'clock, 11 p.m., and this wants to go till midnight. So I would like to see that time changed to 11 p.m.
the motion.
If you,
Yeah, that's
Are you
that's my
making-
motion. Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So, well, she could do that as an amendment? Okay. So you're amending your motion
Yes, yes.
to put the parameter and the end time at 11 p.m.
Yes, please.
For music only or the event altogether?
The music.
For the music.
Yes.
Okay.
Support.
And support. Anything additional on this item?
I just wanted to know what the what your proposal was, but I just caught it with the traffic between the two. So yeah, I got it.
Yeah, instead of allowing the music to 12 p.m., the music would end at 11 p.m. However, the event would still run until midnight, and allowing time for a nice, easy flow out. Commissioner Ramsey?
Yeah, I just have a question. So this is 1922 Park Street, which is across from the cemetery on the corner of Park and Laketon. How many, and I'm looking at the magic maps on Google, how many residents actually live near there that could be bothered, and were they spoken to or asked about the party itself? And could they be? And if, because I can literally only see one house, but Commissioner Emery, that doesn't mean that there's not more. I'm just,
Right.
but I thought that if it's a small enough grouping, we could ask if they cared, and if there wasn't an issue, let them party till the cows come home, eh?
Right there.
But make that a caveat as a part of this thing is to engage the neighbors.
Right. There's a number of homes there, both on the Muskegon corporate side as well as folks in our sister community, Muskegon Heights, along there. So it's tucked in long-term neighborhood.
Sorry, I'm trying to navigate this thing and I can't do the map. Okay, so there are a lot of people there, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there are.
Okay.
Okay.
And can I add?
You may.
Our ordinance doesn't say the noise ordinance is only for residential areas. It's for the whole of City of Muskegon. Whether there's residents or not.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else on this item? Commissioner German?
Yeah, just a quick question. I guess in the past, have we ever extended times for events to go past city ordinance with maybe a special pass, or if they talk to residents within that perimeter? I mean, I understand it's an ordinance. It's only 1 hour. Party, Halloween. I guess it's going to be a Halloween party. Okay. That's a big difference. Okay. Okay. Hey, that might go a little longer.
I like the planned word.
How about now, Commissioner Emery? How about now?
Okay, now. Okay. But hey, might have to stick with what Commissioner's talking about.
Yeah. We never did for the summer celebration or any of those kind of events.
It's been pretty.
Extended.
It's been pretty standard. It's a standard cutoff.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an hour difference. I respect my fellow commissioners' concern about trying to tie it to our current noise ordinance and not going beyond that. As long as the event can still continue to midnight as they originally wanted, I'm okay with cutting it off a little bit sooner. And I wish them a successful event. I know that they were trying to do an event at this site earlier this summer. It's actually going to be right about this time, I think. It was end of July. And they were going to have music then as well. And music wasn't going to go till midnight for that one, right? That was just going to go till within our normal hours. So
There's an adjacent event that same evening, and that one is ending at 11 p.m.
okay. So yeah, I support this event, and I support Commissioner Emery's desire to have it aligned in terms of the noise with the noise ordinance.
Very good. Anything else?
But I do also respect Commissioner Ramsey's desire to why don't we talk to the neighbors, and if there's concerns amongst the nearest neighbors, maybe we could do something till later. But that effort has been done to this point, so I would defer to Commissioner Emery.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Gowron,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Pacifica,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us.
The amendment.
That would be us to the amendment, Mayor.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Now
sorry.
we want to do the original.
Right. Okay.
So we need roll call on the underlying motion.
Okay. Roll call on the underlying motion,
All
please.
right. Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Gallren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Pacifica.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good.
Happy Halloween.
Now can I move forward? Before there's any more
What's your
jokes and
costume
play on
gonna be,
words.
Mr. Mayor? No.
Unfinished business, item A, amendment to Harbor Town PUD. Can we have this read out, please?
Amendment to Harbor Town PUD Planning Summary Request. Request for an amendment to the Harbor Town Plan Unit Development to allow for a storage container to be placed at 3505 Marina View Point, Dockers. Staff recommendation to approve or deny the request for an amendment to the Harbor Town Plan Unit Development to allow for a storage container to be placed at 3505 Marina View Point.
Commissioners, there's no change in the recommendation since it came back before us at the last Planning Commission meeting. Both the petitioner as well as representative from the Harbortown Condo Association was before us. So, petition from the resident or the attitude and the position of the residents' representative remained the same as it was before. So. I don't believe there's anything additional that Mr. Franz could add.
Just a quick comment about the gentleman's comment earlier about the number of allowed containers or storage buildings on site. Just sounds like there might have been a miscommunication at the meeting. Not sure where the number 3 came from, but they actually aren't allowed any without amending the PUD. So they're asking for 1, but they could ask between 1 and infinite, I suppose. Containers, and whether or not, what type of materials would be used was, also part of their request. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think the main thing was the storage container was the focus of the position on not allowing. There was some conversation about perhaps a more proper, in people's minds, wooden structure.
Yeah, it sounded like the representatives from Harbor Town were not against a storage facility, but they did want it to be more architecturally compatible. It's already there.
Okay. Commissioner Ramsey and then Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, that was just my question. Is so that now we know that clearly the issue is the aesthetic of the container, literal container. What has Dockers said about wrapping it in something prettier that's not just painted on a container?
They would rather have this type of container. They weren't able to make it to the meeting tonight, so I don't know. They were able to take that back and digest it and come back with a new plan or anything. So, to my knowledge, this is still what they are requesting.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when we referred it back to the Planning Commission a couple weeks ago, there was a couple of things I think we were trying to accomplish. One was to get clarity on what alternative storage options there would be, because that had come up. And secondly, to encourage all the parties involved to have some dialogue and try to find compromise, and perhaps come up with an alternative design or material or whatnot. Did that conversation happen? And if so, it sounded like what the mayor was suggesting earlier, that everyone's still at the same place that they were 2 weeks ago. But can you elaborate on what conversation, if any, happened and what other options were considered?
Yes, so after the city commission meeting, we contacted Mr. Harris to let him know that the city commission wanted to go back to planning commission and to have Mr. Harris reach out to the other parties to create some dialogue, conversation about what would be acceptable. I'm not sure if those conversations actually took place. I believe they did reach out, but it doesn't sound like any type of resolution was reached.
Okay. Did we get clarity? Because I remember legal counsel, you mentioned that it could be helpful to know, because it came up as like, well, they can just put a trailer and have a trailer sitting in the parking lot and that'd be permissible. Did we get clarity if that's actually permissible or no, that's not permissible? Because it was almost, I don't want to say it, for the lack of a better word, it was almost like a threat. If we don't allow this shipping container, that they could just move in a trailer and park a trailer and do all their storage in a trailer that sits there in their parking lot. So I was wondering if we've got clarity on that.
Well, as staff,
and they didn't come from. Let me clarify. They did not come from the property owner making that suggestion or quote unquote threat. It was just positioned as this is a possibility of what could happen if we don't. And so I just want to clarify that. But sorry.
Yeah, I have not reached out to Mr. Schreier. He might have a different opinion, but as staff, I would consider a trailer, without drivable piece, motor attached to it, that would not be allowed. In fact, there already is a trailer on site, a smaller one, and I did reference to the applicant that would have to be removed. But if it was an actual semi-trailer that you can drive, you are allowed to park that in a parking lot. So I would consider that acceptable as long as the property owners allow somebody to park there.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Okay. Commissioner?
Sorry.
No, Mr. Rinsma-Savinga and then Mr. Ramsey.
What about like a pod or something you would rent that wouldn't be permanent?
No, we really don't allow those pods. It's basically the same thing as a shipping container.
Yeah, but not meant to be permanent. I mean, usually they're rented for a period of time or something.
Yes, in our ordinance, we don't specifically call those out, and that's kind of strategically because it works well for everybody. We know people need those things. We don't want them sitting there forever. But if a neighbor has a complaint, we'll let them know that it's not allowed. We will send a letter out to the owner and give them a couple weeks to remove it. That's kind of just really been working well for everybody.
Commissioner Ramsey?
What is it going to store, Michael? Mr. Franzik?
I believe tables and chairs and other type of restaurant equipment.
So then it's not cold storage or anything like that. It's just a shed.
A large shed, yep.
A large shed. Okay.
I should have asked for a motion.
No.
Commissioners, I missed a beat. We should have begun this with a motion for this discussion before going forward. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. I move to deny the request for an amendment to the Harbortown Planning and Development to allow for a storage container to be placed at 3505 Marina Viewpoint.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Johnson, supported by Commissioner Emery, to deny the request for an amendment to the Harbortown Planned Unit Development to allow for a storage container to be placed at 3505 Marina Viewpoint. Now we can resume.
Okay, then I'm going to go.
Matt, given I made the motion, may I explain why I made the motion as I did?
Yep, go right ahead, and then we'll go to Commissioner Rinsma-Savinga and then Commissioner Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd hope by referring this back to the Planning Commission and the participants, all parties could have tried to figure out a compromise that was, worked for everybody. I do want us to be friendly to our businesses, and Doctor's is a phenomenal restaurant. But at the same time, I recognize that this is a planned unit development, and as such, there are design aesthetics that are at the core of any planned unit development, and this deviates from that. So it sounds like the neighbors within the PUD Harbortown are open to an additional storage facility there. They just want it to conform with the aesthetic, and so I would be supportive of that shed there or a storage facility there. But given its current, and I appreciate that they've made an effort, the property owner, to try to spruce it up a little bit. But given the current circumstances, that's why I made my motion to deny the request and concur with the Planning Commission recommendation to deny it as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Rinsma-Savinga.
I would say basically the same thing. I think that this doesn't mean that they cannot have a storage unit, and I think if that were to become the case, I would tend to say, well, we need something. So I don't know how you can come to an agreement, and at some point it may be necessary to if the neighbors still don't like the aesthetic or like the proposal for the storage, I think it's reasonable that they're provided some way to, achieve storage there. So I basically agree with Commissioner Johnson.
Very good. Commissioner Ramsey?
Well, I'm going to say the same thing. So I agree with the two of you. If this is about aesthetics, tell Dockers to make it prettier, and have them work with the organization, and it should be great.
Anything else, commissioners, before we go to vote? Roll call, please.
Mayor Gowron,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramsey,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Wentz-Pacifica,
Yes.
Commissioner Emery,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item on new business, item A. May we have this read out, please?
Rezoning of 1128 Robert Street, planning, summary request. Request to rezone the property at 1128 Robert Street from R1 Single Family Residential Low Density to MC Medical Care by Fresh Coast Alliance. Staff recommendation to approve or deny the request to rezone the property at 1128 Robert Street from R1 Single Family Residential Low Density to MC Medical Care.
I'll need a motion on this from the commission. Commissioner Wentz-Pacifica?
I move to approve the request to rezone the property 1128 Robert Street from R1 Single Family Residential Low Density to Medical Care.
Support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wentz-Pacifica, supported by the Vice Mayor, to approve the request to rezone the property at 1128 Robert Street from R1 Single Family Residential Low Density to MC Medical Care. Mr. Franzik, welcome back.
Thank you. So the Planning Commission actually heard two public hearings on this. The first was to rezone the property for medical care so that they can have a drug treatment facility. And any type of medical use that needs overnight lodging needs a special use permit. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the rezoning 8-0 with one absent, and they did approve the special use permit with a couple of conditions, also 8-0 with one absent. And those conditions were to pretty minor, to move the garage into a different location, and also needing a stormwater permit from the drain commissioner. So that was approved, contingent upon this rezoning being successful tonight. There were quite a few participants at the public hearing. We did have several letters beforehand that were in favor of it. They did not appear to be residents of the neighborhood, but people that were, really in favor of the program, happy with their work. There was some dialogue back and forth, and many of the residents that spoke out against it had the same issues with people loitering, parking, some type of issues like that. And, it's really your classic NIMBY case, and not in my backyard, going back and forth with the applicants and the presenter. I think, the people against it, many of them conceded that it is a very needed program throughout the city. They're just a little timid about having it in their neighborhood.
Questions for Mr. Franzik? Commissioner Wentz-Pacifica?
I probably missed it, but what was the use prior to this?
It's currently being used as a church in a portion of it, and I understand Fresh Coast Alliance may be operating out of there on a smaller scale basis right now, and I believe it may have even been a school prior to that.
Yeah. I attended preschool there.
Did you really?
Okay. Well, grew up in the neighborhood.
There you go.
You can
Vice
give us
Mayor?
a tour of the halls.
Vice Mayor and then Commissioner Ramsey.
If I'm correct, this place was used as a some type of exit program prior to this, maybe 3 years ago, and it had been in service for about 5 years, maybe. Prior to that, run by the same person.
Yes.
Well, I guess can we
Yeah,
hear from him?
yeah, come on up. Yeah, come on up. Give your name, your address, and you can answer questions regarding the programming and perhaps the scope, and council if you want to come up as well.
Yeah. Nathan Johnson, 1314 Moulton, North Muskegon. And we started there January 1, 2016. Prior to that, we were working with the exit program when they first started. So me and my partner Joe, we helped get exit going when we were with 70x7 Life Recovery out of Holland. Mm-hmm. We helped get the program going, and then we understood that there was a bigger need than just jail reentry. There was prisoner reentry and the things going on with addiction here in the county. And so we launched out January 1, 2016 in the current building, 1128 Roberts, to start with. We were 70x7 Life Recovery. After a couple of years, we rebranded to Fresh Coast Alliance. But we did do serving together with the exit program once we started over there, but it was very minimal. And so we're still in partnership with them. We're just over there doing that, and we still partner with them in what they're doing.
When you guys were in service from 2016 to when?
Till present.
At the Roberts place.
Yeah, 2016 till present right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I know that there's concerns in the neighborhood for your building to become a medical facility. Why does it need to be licensed as a medical center?
Timothy Stoker, address 200 Ottawa Avenue, Northwest, Grand Rapids, Michigan, representing the applicant. That was the only zoning classification that worked in the city, where you do a combination of treatment, which is allowed. It's there's no dispensing of medical or drugs within the treatment, but to do that and have residential, that was the only zoning in the city that allowed it, was the MC zoning. There was no other zoning classification that worked, and we had reviewed that with the planner before making the application. With that, we propose, and I would propose, and I don't know how this can be done because I know you don't have a conditional zoning ordinance, though I think under the statute you could allow conditions. We would propose that under that zoning classification, the following uses are permitted, either permitted by right or special land use. We would propose that and whether it's through a development agreement or whatever, a restrictive covenant running to the benefit of the city, that no hospitals, urgent care, no day surgery, no medical laboratories or research, no pharmacies, no medical appliance or equipment sales, no ambulance center service or building be operated there, and no parking deck be operated. So we would exclude all those uses from the MC. Our main purpose is to provide counseling services and therapeutic services to the people who visit the current building now, and the rest of the property would be used to house a home for women and a home for men. So it would, and I think the total residents per building was 15, including staff. So what occurs now at 1128 Roberts, which was the former Lutheran school building, and then became the current church building where we operate, would essentially remain the same, though the issue with the parking and traffic, which occurs on Sunday, would be rectified because the church would then move into the former Lutheran church on the corner, is my understanding, and occupy that. And so that issue would go away. That was the concerns that were raised, was parking on Sundays and traffic. There's not been an issue during the weekday, but it's on Sundays, and they're a growing church. This will allow them to occupy the prior Missouri Lutheran church there, which my mother-in-law has gone to, and over the years, they have vacated, and so that use would then vacate our building within about a year, and they would move into there. So that allows them to acquire. We buy from them, they buy from the church and move. So those are, and I don't know how we do that logistically from a restrictive standpoint. I'm telling this commission that whether it's done by a development agreement or in the conditional zoning or in the conditional use permit or in a restricted covenant running to the benefit of the city,
we would not do these uses on that property, okay? And it can't be just a statement from me telling you that's not enforceable. We want to make sure you're comfortable with that. The other question that was raised about this being done in residential communities. You don't know me. I've never been in front of you before. I've represented Cherry Health out of Grand Rapids for almost 41 years. And I also represented recently Harbor Foundation up in Petoskey. Most of these are in residential neighborhoods. In fact, all of them I've done almost 41 years, whether it's kids programs or adult therapeutic programs, always done in residential. And that is because people need to be acclimated back into their community from which they came. And that is the benefit from this. The other benefit from this property is it's been institutionally used from day one, either as a church and or a school or a combination of programs. And that institutional use would go on. The one difference is the vacant property on Roberts would be developed with two buildings, residential buildings. And again, that combination required the MC zoning. We heard from the neighbors about their concern that they don't want an influx of medical that's not consistent with what we're proposing, and I'm proposing the best solution that I know to alleviate that issue. And how we do that, I can work with you and your city attorney to do, but we are committed as Fresh Coast to do that, so those concerns would not. I think that hopefully answers questions that you might have.
It does, gives us that point. Commissioner Ramsey?
Yeah. Madam Clerk, is there a way to put the aerial map up so that people can see it? Otherwise, I'm going to have Mr. Johnson step over to my laptop and show me.
Is it in the packet here?
Yes, keep on going. And it's right there. Okay, so here's the red box. The church is currently in the building.
Yeah.
And they're going to stay in the same building.
No, we just literally last week signed the agreement to purchase the church, Our Redeemer Lutheran, which is one block north. So we just signed the paper to purchase that. So we will eventually move into that building.
So the church moves into that building, Our Redeemer Lutheran Church.
Fresh Coast would take over this whole building.
So then this is all y'all's property, all this property here in the red box.
Everything except for there's a baseball field kind of at the bottom part of the red dot. That's a baseball field. We just purchased that as well.
Okay.
So prior to what just happened here just a couple of weeks ago, we just had the back part back there.
Okay.
And then currently where the building is, and you can see that slab of concrete, that was a basketball court. It's kind of like a little field next to it. We had that. And then we just acquired the baseball field.
There are two separate property owners. The church currently owns the property to the north of the, and then the other properties, which has been vacant, was owned by a separate owner.
So when we speak about the parking issue that was referenced, because I want to make sure that we are able to address the issues that the neighbors brought up, right? Right. So when we speak about the parking issue that was brought up, that will obviously be mitigated by the amount of property, the copious amount of property that you have, so that you can have off-street parking for your residents, 30 in total in 2 buildings. So that won't be an on-street issue. Okay.
And the current parking lot there, you can see on the top of that, that's going to be increased as well.
Right.
Parking spots.
So now, as far as practice goes, I know that there, someone maybe mentioned about a lot of people coming and going, or I don't want to use the word loitering, but maybe that could be an issue. I'm not sure. I actually live across the street from a step-up house, so this is not news to me, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity. But I do want to make sure that we're able to address these issues, these questions. I would assume that your organization operates when you do on-site transitional housing, that there is a code of conduct, and there is curfews, or this is when you're in the house, this is when you are not.
Absolutely. A number of the neighbors had brought this up at the last one. They said these Fresh Coast has recovery and reentry houses in the neighborhood, and we've been doing it for 5 years, and they said that they didn't even know it, which is a good thing.
Right. Yes, we'll take
We've been there for 5 years. None of them can say we've caused any crime.
Right.
Police have never been called. In fact, our houses are treated very well. The grass is maintained. We take care of our houses. There's security cameras up. I'm the director over the programming. I run a tight ship. They know when they get there, they come voluntarily. So it's not a judge isn't sentencing them. They're not. Right. They're coming because they're ready to change their lives and get free from addiction, this and that. And so, and they know when they get there, I take it very seriously. I'm a formerly incarcerated individual. I served 12 and a half years in prison. And my hope is to help people transition in that. And having been someone who's been through it, I feel a calling that I'm here to help them as well. So, we run a tight ship. They know if they're there, we take it very seriously. And if you're not at that point where you're ready, then we want to encourage them to get to the place that's best fit for them. It just isn't there.
Right.
And so, yes, we run a very tight ship and make sure that it's people who really want to be there.
Awesome. And I do want to say that reading through the packet, it is very clear in your letter of support from the state that your program is not mandatory and that people volunteer and line up to be a part of this wonderful opportunity that will literally change their lives.
Yes.
And that we should celebrate that.
Absolutely.
If I might add, permission to the mayor, we had proposed to the planning commission, and again, however we do this through the city attorney or through the commission, we would propose, and I've done this in other instances, that we would form an advisory board with the community and that we would meet on a quarterly basis or whatever is workable. And actually, so the community now interacts with us. And so it avoids sometimes lack of communication, creates more problems than if there's constant communication. And I have found through my years of practice with these types of nonprofits that forming an advisory board with the community is a proactive step. So there is an open door, and then you're not trying to rectify problems afterwards, and people can address them. And there may be other ways that we can service the immediate community beyond what we're doing as specific for this program. In some cases, we've done Jobs Works programs. We've become designated for that. I'm not saying that can happen here, but there are other opportunities if we are proactive in setting that up. So again, that's something that we would commit to, and we would commit to that in writing to the city.
Commissioner German, then Commissioner Emery, and that Vice Mayor, where's your hand going up? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Both of you hit on some really key points that concern me. And I know Nate there. And I did get a chance to reach out to your partner, Joe. Got a chance to talk, and he enlightened me on some things here. And also that exit program. Actually, I was just over there speaking to a group of guys last week, congratulating them on their success and their steps coming back into the community. Definitely one of the concerns, and gentlemen there hit on the spot, putting together a revisory board, I think is really key, where it entails with the community or key figures from the community to give that input. But one of my concerns also, now the care, and you talked about what you wouldn't do there. Now this type of care costs, just give me a good understanding. When you say treatment and you care, they're talking about actual counseling, as you mentioned, but what type of, drugs or things, is there any, treatment, when you say treatment, like alcohol treatment and all that kind of stuff, is there a doctor there or somebody to administer certain medications and stuff like that?
Yeah, so picture this like a residential treatment facility. Individuals ready to get off of drugs, and they come and they spend 90 days to 6 months with us. And we do own and operate our own therapy practice, Alcohol Chemical Abuse Consultants, which is right on the corner of Roberts and Apple. And it'll be governed by our therapy practice. And so they're going to be meeting with counselors and therapists and recovery coaches, and we'll have a program. And we haven't developed the exact programming. I mean, we know what the state requires of us, and then there's things that we can add, things such as exercise and different things like that. But we will have, it's not like we're having, it's not a methadone clinic. And I think the word medical is throwing people off. It's just that was the only zoning. I think City Manager Frank Peterson brought up, he explained to everyone, said, this is the only terminology that Muskegon County has to say. So medical is just, imagine a residential treatment facility. People are coming who have been traumatized that are working through that with a therapist and counselors, and we're going to attempt to create some structure so that individuals can get back into a healthy rhythm of life but doing it inside of a neighborhood, like Tim had referred to, helps with that reacclimation back into society as opposed to being in an institutional facility and thrust back into the community. And it makes it a bit hard for transition because we're dealing with individuals who have been on the streets for 10, 15, 20, 30 years and have never managed a checkbook, have never lived a responsible lifestyle. So we're going to be able to help with those particular things while they're there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yes, and that's good. Because we do have a problem here with homeless and drug addictions and all type of crisis, and so yeah, I like your proposal. So yeah.
Yeah, and we just want to be a benefit and blessing to the city and to the neighborhood. That's it. So it's helping individuals get their lives back and getting individuals to a place where they can help clean up what they helped mess up, so that we can do it in. And we believe that Sheldon Park is a healthy neighborhood to do that in. And, we're thankful that we're there, and we want to be a benefit and blessing to that community.
Yeah, thank you,
Commissioner Emery.
Yeah, you've answered a lot of my questions already, but just to clarify, first I want to say I applaud it. Thank you. As someone who has a lot of family members, and I mean a lot, that have been addicted, alcohol, drugs, spent time in prison because of it. Thank you. Do you work a 12-step program or similar to the 12-step program?
Something similar to it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, my other question, I think, and you hit it when you said the name of it, medical care facility, is misleading.
Yeah.
So you are not a place that there are no drugs. It's not a safe place where you can go and shoot up.
No.
And if you overdose, they've got a remedy right there to save your life. So it's not that. These men and women who will be in your homes or these houses will be sober and expected to remain sober, whether it's sober from drugs and alcohol or drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
And they are to work your program.
Yeah. And
if they step out of line, they will be asked to leave.
Absolutely. It'll be 24/7 care. So they'll be
Yes.
with us 24/7. And again, it'll be voluntary. You know, because in order to, from experience, in order to help people, if they're not ready, if it hasn't worn them out, there's nothing that we can do,
You
right?
can lead a horse to water, they say.
Exactly. So we're there for the ones that are say, hey, I'm ready to I'm ready to be done with this. And then we want to be there to love them back to care.
Right.
You know?
The ones that have hit their bottom.
Yes.
And ready to stand up.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to add that I worked with young adults that had addiction problems and just had problems, period. And we sent them over to the place on Roberts, and I sat in for a minute, and I met with Nate. Yes. And you know, being a ex-cop at first, you know, I was kind of weary. Okay, but as I sat in and sent people, I realized, and I noticed that Nate really communicates with them good. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I hope that we can get this worked out with the neighbors. And maybe the suggestion that the attorney gave with the, if that could work out, then that would be great. And I hope that would be satisfactory to our neighbors. So I just wanted to just give you some kudos that your program there, I noticed the difference when the kids were going. And first it's hard getting them to go, but once they was going and while they were in the program, they were doing really well. And I say kids because that's young adults, younger than me, but they were adults. And so I know it's a good thing, and I think that you and your partner ran a pretty good ship too. So
thank you, sir.
Yeah. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you speak to how this integrates with your other facility? You've got another facility nearby, and then also you partner with Catholic Charities. They do detox at Catholic Charities, and then after that, they participate in your program. And then you have another facility on Apple. where they can receive
Yeah,
service?
so we've been in a relationship with Catholic Charities since, even prior to the detox facility they just put up. So we work closely with them. One of the recovery coaches is at Fresh Coast a couple times a week with the groups. And so, for instance, just assume an individual's coming off of heroin, okay? And they're like, hey, I need some treatment. The first step would be to go to detox with Catholic Charities at the Kobe Center there behind the rescue mission. Then after that, then they would come to us, which would be like the next level of care, where they're with us 90 days to 6 months, and we start that acclimation process back. So that's our relationship with Catholic Charities. So up on the Roberts and Apple, our therapy practice, we have trauma therapists, substance use disorder therapists, counselors that work with individuals who are coming out of addiction, coming out of incarceration, and they meet weekly with them, sometimes a couple times a week. They all get assigned a recovery coach, a reentry coach, and they work closely with them. Because our heartbeat is we want to discover the why behind the what. Why are you doing this? The what is the behavior, but why? And so our therapists are there to help it, and then we have a number of people have come through that are successful now, that own businesses here in the town, a number of them, and some even work for Health West, Muskegon Community Care, and now they're there too, and helping with encouragement and hope that you actually can win the war over staying out, and you can win the war over addiction, and giving hope to them. So our partnership with them is we're like the aftercare of Catholic Charities. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I appreciate the work that you and your organization are doing for our community. It is a much needed service. I'm grateful that you've taken your lived experiences and using that to lead by example and help others in our community. It is really important that we have this aftercare, as you say, to provide that stability with this housing and the therapy, and to keep people clean and productive members of our society. And I think it's important too that we're careful about not stigmatizing folks that had been previously incarcerated or otherwise addicted, because the stigma can cause them to not evolve and grow and relapse, so to speak. So grateful for all that you're doing. I did, and thank you, Mr. Whalen. I don't know if he's still in here for meeting with me and some of the other neighbors, because I had met with the neighbors a couple days ago to hear their concerns and their questions, and I'm grateful for Mr. Whalen making himself available to meet with them personally. One of my takeaways is that they definitely want more communication, and I appreciate that you're taking that to heart and working on that advisory board and want to incorporate some of the neighbors. It sounds like we could do better ourselves in terms of communication at the city level or some engagement, but that's something that they want to from you all and to be good neighbors.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I realized there was some overture to the SPNIA, the Sheldon Park Neighborhood Improvement Association, but it didn't always carry through to the surrounding residents. And some of the things that we heard to allay concerns were all those conditions as well. And then there would be on-site 24/7 care and whatnot, but those conditions, and that's what I want to understand is how we're going to actually include those conditions or enforce those conditions. So legal counsel can weigh in on how we can add those conditions to this zoning request and move forward with such conditions.
I think the recommendation is a follow-up to council's comments. Probably it's a motion to table this item tonight. Staff will then pick it up and work with it. We'll work on figuring out, do we do a conditional zone? Do we do a development agreement? Both have some pros and cons, and I think we can get there. I don't have a problem with that. But I agree with you. We can't do this from the dais. That's a disaster. And I don't think that helps either one of us getting to the next step. And so that's my recommendation. I think there's some things, and you and I talked about it briefly before the meeting, and council's very sympathetic to it, is it's got to be enforceable. It's got to be in some sort of a document that if it doesn't happen as planned, and I'm making no aspersions, that, okay, somebody can step up and say, wait a minute, that was your promise, you got to do it. And I don't say that with any aspersions or disbelief that you're going to do exactly what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
But I think out of fairness for both of us, we all got to be on that same page. And I'm sure, council, you and I can do that.
Thank you.
Do you suggest tabling to a certain date, or how would you recommend framing that motion
probably
to table?
Without a date, and then when we're all ready, but not premature, then it'll come back and there'll be a motion to take it off the table and a motion to probably adopt some authorized signing of documents that we jointly all can agree to. And I'm assuming that as part of that, we're going to have some conversations, and you're going to have some conversations with people in the neighborhoods. That is sufficient. It probably doesn't work if it's just the two of us like it and the neighbors don't.
Okay. To move that, make that motion.
Not at this time. I'm sorry. Commissioner Ramsey.
Yeah, I support all of that. I think that this is a great opportunity, and I think that anything that we can do to engage the immediate community more so that they feel comfortable, because like you said, Nate, you guys have been there. You've been doing this work. It's great work. We all know that, right? We support this. These are our neighbors. And we oftentimes make claims that we forget to support our neighbors. And this is a great opportunity to do that and show that we actually do. And so I want to thank you guys for being so flexible and being so open and having that system of accountability so that the term MC Medical Center doesn't scare people and really lets them understand what you're going to provide there. Yeah. And so I support that wholeheartedly, and I'll be excited when it comes back before us and we get to say congrats and thank you for the help.
Commissioner German, then Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I concur as well. Again, gentlemen, I thank you for the work that you do. It's not easy work. You know, you're dealing with, a lot of issues there, personalities, and I share definitely the concern with the neighbors and the community. And I think having that dialogue and having that engagement and giving community input would help move this process, to success a lot smoother. So,
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm sensitive to the concerns of some of the neighbors, and wanting them to have greater comfort level because they realize the benefit of this service as well. So I think it's just a matter of dialogue, engagement, trying to get everyone on the same page, do what we can to reassure, and do that as part of this process of legal counsels getting together to figure out how we can have enforceable conditions on this so that, because it's not necessarily about what you're going to do with the property, it's also what could happen to that property 5 years from now or 10 years from now or 15 years from now.
Absolutely.
If we rezone this, all of those use by rights that come with the medical care property go forward. And so those conditions are important, and that will be something that will help reassure the neighbors. So with that being said, I move that we table this matter to provide time for the city and the applicant to...
No, that's fine.
Do you need a formal motion, or do we?
Yes, but that's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
support? Does it need support?
Okay.
Yes, we'll come back.
So it has been moved to table this item by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner German, and this matter will be referred back to staff. So discussions and dialogue begin with how to build in enforceability with any conditions for the use of the property, and were we including the community engagement?
I wouldn't in your motion.
Okay, very
I
good.
think
Okay,
we understand that.
we understand. Okay,
And they understand too.
okay, very good. All right, the matter is tabled. There's no
There's a vote.
there's no further discussion.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
But there is a vote on for the tabling. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ramsey?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Winston-Mississippiga?
Yes.
Commissioner Emery?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Gallagher?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hood?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That brings us to any other business. Commissioners, at this time, does anyone on the body have any additional business to bring before Commissioner Ramsey?
Yes, I have a question. I would like to speak to our deputy city manager. Last meeting, city manager presented our findings from the community survey around the ARPA funds that are coming into our wonderful county, and we spoke about some plans to further engage those neighborhoods that had a less than optimal turnout when we talk about the survey itself. And I just wanted to know, because I want this to take weeks and not months, where we were on a plan that staff was going to kind of move forward with, so that we could get into those neighborhoods by leveraging relationships that either we have with them, with neighbors, or that some of our community stakeholders do, so that we could collect some more information and really begin to move forward as the clock is ticking.
It may take.
Right. So it was helpful to have the survey and understand where the respondents live.
Mhm.
So we do know the neighborhoods that need to be targeted. You know, essentially it's our core city and to the east.
Mhm.
So our plan is that there's a National Night Out event, or several National Night Out events coming up next week. And so we'd like to have some staff go with printed surveys to those events and target the core city neighborhoods and the east side neighborhoods with the staff. So then people can return those to the drop boxes at City Hall. We also think that we should reopen the link, put it back
Wonderful.
online, and have some printed surveys available in the clerk's office. We can even put some at the library. And then we also thought that we could reach out to the neighborhood associations and some of the religious institutions in those same neighborhoods.
Yes.
To, you know, because they tend to be community centers for us. And so, again, they can certainly let people know that it's available online, but we'll have printed versions as well.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think that sounds like a great plan. And again, I volunteer myself and all of my colleagues to do any of that work with you. I think that looking at our local religious partners is a wonderful opportunity. We know that a lot of times those serve as, adjunct community centers, especially in areas like the ones that we're talking about. And so I think that us being able to leverage those relationships will give us a more honest and higher turnout. So if there's anything that we can do, or if there's any way that we can sit down and go over some of the things, maybe there's an opportunity for some focus groups, or nothing that is time consuming. And I'm not trying to make any more work for anyone, but I think that we have such an awesome opportunity with so much money to make a lasting impression on our community. And I know that we have a great plan, and I would just want to make sure that it's facilitated flawlessly, so that in 20 years, when Commissioner Johnson and I are sitting on a porch somewhere, we can look at each other and be like, look at that great stuff that we did, and look at these beautiful parks and these kids running around, And so I just want to make sure that we as a bench completely support you, but push the work forward in a timely but efficient manner. So thank you for sharing that. And if there's anything that we can do, please let us know.
Can I let you know right now?
Absolutely.
Well, we did talk with the vice mayor, and he gave us some ideas for some religious institutions that would be helpful to us. So if any of the rest of you have some in mind, or other places that serve as community hubs, that with some contact information, that will be helpful.
Great.
Great.
We have some
Absolutely.
already, but
Very good. Anything else on this end? Or a follow-up?
Yep, just sorry, it was in my head. You talked about having paper applications and then maybe having them drop them back off here at the city in the Dropbox. What if someone can't get here to drop off? Is there a way for us to do some sort of envelope that's pre-stamped and be like, if you can't come to the city here, mail it in, or some way for them to get the document back, whether it's through a hub, a church, or where they can drop it off? But maybe I live in Jackson Hill and I don't have a car, or I'm aged and don't drive. There's got to be a way for them to return them that's intentional, that isn't just coming here to the middle of everything. So just think about that.
I will.
Let me know.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything here, commissioners? No. Anything additional on this end, commissioners? Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think further engagement is warranted on this. I've been consistent in wanting to have comprehensive community engagement with regard to how do we spend this once-in-a-lifetime money. I still think that it would be appropriate to have forums as well. I mean, we've had forums in the past on items. We've gone out into the community as a body to inform and receive information, and feedback. We've done that on different topics in the past. So I think that it would be appropriate to do something of this magnitude. We could, I don't know, see it as an either or, like we have to move fast and spend all this money. Like we can prioritize things that we realize we need to start spending sooner than later, while then taking the intentionality and effort to inform how to spend the rest of the money longer term. Because as we've recognized, and I think we all recognize and appreciate, is that the respondents that we got were not reflective of the great diversity of our community, socioeconomic, racial, ethnic, and so on and so forth, or geographical. And so it is important that we acknowledge that and try to fill those gaps. And I appreciate the paper surveys, going to the neighborhood associations, wondering though if we should pare that down, because I think for some people that inhibited their completion of the survey, there were a lot of questions in there unrelated to what are the priorities for how to spend this money. Well, I think those were good questions, and it would be nice to have that information. If our intent is to understand people's priorities insofar as this money is concerned, perhaps to get the most responses, focus on that itself rather than these questions of how long have you lived in your neighborhood, do you know your neighbors, are you active in your neighborhood, like all these other questions that are good questions, but when you've got a lengthy survey and we're trying to get to what their priorities are for this funding, and that's the last thing, it may dissuade people from completing the survey, whether online or in paper. But I think if we do paper, Commissioner Ramsey spot on in terms of how do we help facilitate getting those back to us. And I think forums or focus groups would be helpful. And I know a resident of ours had suggested or pointed out a Baldus study that was done or analysis that was done in terms of surveying our community with regard to use for the Lakeshore Fitness Center. This was a while back before it was identified as a well-needed asset and being taken over by the Boys and Girls Club. But perhaps there are insights we can learn from that, or some of the best practices we can learn from that and adopt going forward to further inform our allocation and uses of these resources.
Thank you, Commissioner German.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good idea, Ms. Mikesell. I will say, just by briefly looking over the results of the survey, and I've always said this, as you look at Muskegon as a whole, I think we have 14 precincts. Every neighborhood or ward has a different need, and we have to address those needs. You see from the questions or the answers that there's different needs and concerns. What may happen or needed in, just say, a Bluffton Beechwood area, it's going to be completely different in an Angel area. I mean, and the disparities, you can see them just through the answers. And, just in my experience, and analyzing data research, going back to undergrad and all that. I've always utilized that skill, but being able to understand it and read it and cipher it, you really get a broad understanding what is needed in each community. So I think we have to really be cognitive of, how we approach this, and maybe even look at some answers that probably could be added. I mean, some questions that could probably be added in that data research, because everybody's going to be affected somehow, but we want to make sure that it's equitable, and very inclusive, and make sure we're fair when we're talking about doing things and distributing funding, that we have coming in, this CARES Act funding. That's a lot of money, and it can help a lot of neighborhoods and people. So I just think we want to be fair about it, take a common sense approach about it, and don't be in a rush, but make sure that we reach out and hear from the whole city of Muskegon when we think about doing this, making this decision. So that's my take on it. Yeah.
And I think we've garnered some really good input from the engagement we've had. But even staff, I mean, immediately said that there was less engagement in certain neighborhoods than others, and that's why we're going to continue on. And even above and beyond the survey, that's not the end of our engagement or our conversations with the citizens whatsoever. But it's a good start to at least get a general idea of what people are seeing outside their front door and what impacts them most immediately, where they're living. And it does vary from neighborhood to neighborhood, and we're certainly finding that. But the one thing I was very gratified with the survey was that it definitely is designed around the allowable uses of the ARPA funds, and translates it into our delivery of services. One thing I was very happy with is that, and I've made the statement to other people, is that I think definitely due to extremely talented management and administration across the board and within our finance department, when you really look at the amount of money that we're getting, which is a little under a year's worth of general fund money, in the aggregate, the small amount that we're utilizing to plug a hole, with our city finances. Other communities are not going to go much through an exercise like this because their holes are so big. And when myself and my fellow mayors who are on the forefront of fighting for these ARPA funds, myself, my fellows at the Urban Core Mayors of Michigan, the 13 traditional urban cores, my fellow members, trustee members, and I'm also a member of the executive board of the Michigan Municipal League, and our work with the National League of Cities, that went and beat up on Congress due to the fact that some monies had come through earlier during the pandemic, but you had to be a community over 250,000, and the rest of us holding bags and trying to keep our head above water. So for the real intent, and the one thing that they scratched on us was you could not use these funds for your legacy costs, retirement and OPEB, stuff like that. So other communities out there are bleeding a lot worse than we are when it comes to their ability to pay for their municipal services, and they're going to be using the lion's share. That's certainly not the case here, but we are looking at long-term investment so that we can make an impact, down through the years, on our park system, our ability to provide quality outdoor space for our kids and families and the like, and stay out of debt, as was put through in the presentation by the city manager. But I think kudos to staff for doing the work that they have done prior and during the pandemic, with our financial condition is enviable compared to many communities throughout the region. But again, I think the emphasis is always on we're committed to those community conversations, and and engagement and, giving the facts and the realities to the people we live next door to. Vice Mayor and then Commissioner Ramsey.
Yes, I just want to say that the meetings that we have on the east side or west side, those what are they called? Forums. Yes, sorry, skipped my mind. But forums are great. They work on the west side of town, but on the east they don't work as well because we can't get opinions from and say we got majority opinion and you only got 19 people in the room. So as I talked with Miss
just call her deputy
deputy manager, we have to start using our religious organizations and the religious leaders because they do want to help. They want to be a part of this process. And I think that's just another way that we can get to a vast majority of people. And if we could have surveys, maybe there or, talk with them ahead of time, the pastors, bishops, ministers ahead of time and see if we can have the actual survey there and they can fill them out. Give them time to fill them out. So I think that what you said, Commissioner, is a great idea. It does work on the west end of town, but the forums that we've had on the east end of town, there's just not enough people that comes out. And same thing with surveys. A lot of them don't fill out surveys when they come in the mail. I think my survey is probably still at home too. I didn't fill it out. So
mail it out.
Yeah, and so it's like I'm no different than the average person, and some people don't do them. So I just think that, like you said, we take our time and look at everybody's answer, and then just try to hit all those ideas, or some of the ones that make more sense.
There's an ample opportunity to do face-to-face, too.
Yeah.
Right, and I really want to speak to that. So when the Community Health Innovation Region launched the Livability Lab, we did 367 face-to-face surveys. And to second what Commissioner Johnson said, because this is not a scientific survey, there are questions we can remove from the form itself. And then when we put together a professional and polished report that's disaggregated and doesn't have any professional information on it to present to the community, we can even have an appendix that identifies those shorter surveys as being that. But it gives us the opportunity for me to stand in a room with Eric and facilitate a survey, because it's 15 questions, not 32, or whatever that looks like. But really, like the mayor said, to really take those questions that apply to the way that we can spend the funding. And sure, there's a pie in the sky question. If you could have anything, what would it be? But really to get direct about that so that we can have them done one-on-one in person, whether it's with myself and Eric showing up, doing it for other people, or through those religious organizations, and someone's there to facilitate, to say, hey, this is what you guys do. Everyone takes 7 minutes, fill this out, put it in the box, and we're done. Mm-hmm. But there's a real opportunity there. And so I think that we need to make sure that we look at that. And then when the report's put together, we just call it the separation and facilitation of those two different surveys. It's not a scientific study. We're never going to get those results. But the ability to once again prove to our neighbors that we hear their voice and they are a part of this is super important. And as I've said for months now, well, since last January, before, we're turning a corner. And in order to make sure that we have the engagement that we're looking for so that people will fill out their surveys, that's a result of trauma and lack of. And so as we move forward, if we make sure that we say, hey, thank you for filling out the survey. We heard you. And either this is what we did or this is what we didn't do, and here's why. That is this opportunity, if nothing else. And so I want us to take this and make it shine so that we can show all of our neighbors that we did the best that we possibly could. And if there were shortcomings, then guess what? We'll fix it the next time. But we also then, as a city, as a staff, as a bench, as a neighborhood, get to learn the process of sharing your story. And let's do it on someone else's dime. I think that it's a great opportunity. And I also want to remind everyone that if we need to go door to door, I have volunteered Michael Franzik to knock on every door in our city and ask them what they would like us to do.
Bless you, Michael.
Yeah. So thank you, Commissioner Johnson, and everyone else and Vice Mayor Hood and the mayor for being a part of this. Because when I brought it up, I don't want to belabor this and I don't want to make it a thing, but I think that we're all saying the same thing. Exactly. Is that we as a team understand the importance of that community voice, and not that the survey is negated. Because some of it's really great. Beechwood Bluffton, way to go, show up. But how do we get in there and fill those gaps? We don't have to start over. We just need to amend and work forward. And so whatever we can do so that it's real for everyone.
Yes, you may. Please do.
Thank you. So I hear what you're saying about the questions, and we can certainly look at those. Some of those questions do help us get to those things that you were talking about, Commissioner German, why people feel the way they do, and it helps us understand where it makes sense to spend the money. And I think some of that came out in Frank's report, or I should be more formal and say the manager's report, when he talked about, hey, going before we had any of this data, we thought that this might be the right way to spend this money, but now we think, well, here's some things that are more important to certain neighborhoods. Well, let's try to focus some of that money to those neighborhoods and not just have a one size fits all for the whole city. And we are already, staff's already thinking about how we're going to continue doing this community engagement. Once we have a plan, talking about what the plan is, and then that phased approach of, okay, well, we know we want to do these large scale things. So, we're identifying these pots of money for these certain things, but then we have to dig into the details of exactly what those projects look like. And so we're fully expecting to do a lot of communication as we go through this. And we even are talking about with our website update that's in process, that we can have some reporting on there as well, specific to these funds.
Very good. Very good. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks all commissioners for weighing in on this and providing your feedback and input. It's great dialogue happening here. And thank you, Deputy City Manager, for your ongoing efforts with regard to engaging our community and informing how to spend this money in important ways. Great idea. So I don't want to reiterate too much, but great idea on the religious organization, engaging them. They can reach a lot of folks in our community.
And this Commissioner German helped us with that too.
Commissioner German, Vice Mayor Hood, the leaders in our community to engage our residents and help them be part of this process. In terms of the question of surveys and forums, you're absolutely right, Vice Mayor Hood, that a number of people don't want to do surveys. They're not interested in doing a survey, and that's where I think the forum could be an alternative. Whether it's a full-on forum with all of us or focus groups, it's another way to engage folks that maybe don't want to do the survey, even if they were handed a survey at church or at the National Night Out or somewhere else. I know some of our forums on the East End, we do usually do a Smith Ryerson. Some of them are sparser attendant. Others we do get scores of people that show up. One thing that could help us if we're doing something like that is if we're going around and kind of blanking the neighborhood or canvassing or making sure something gets in the mail saying, hey, we're doing a forum at this time, this place, and that could see a higher turnout, because previously it's just relying on media or word of mouth, or it's us, spreading the word. So some kind of intentional mailer or something in those neighborhoods. I know a church over in the Marquette neighborhood sent out thousands of mailers to a picnic they did to try to get more people there. So something that we could potentially consider to get people to show up and engage in those forums. And I know that the clerk said whenever we serve food, it always increases turnout when we got food there. And a couple other things I want to bring up. The manager mentioned plugging holes and in our budgets. And I know that this last plan, we talked about reducing how much we actually were going to give to the farmers market to as revenue replacement from the past. And I'm just wondering, maybe you can't speak to this right now, Deputy City Manager, but is that notion that we're going to reserve that potentially for a future fiscal year, that we then would plug that next fiscal year rather than try to do all the revenue replacement all at one time? Maybe we're going to spread that out over a number of fiscal years. Because the reason why I'm asking is because we do have capital improvements that we'd like to make at the farmers market as well, and so potentially using that for that. So I don't know if you can speak to that. And then just a couple other things. We saw a number of, and I know you're a little disadvantaged because it was Frank's presentation, but you were part of the process and the planning for that. Is a lot of the money was earmarked for this nonprofit, that nonprofit, this nonprofit, or and I'm just wondering if we could figure out a way to, okay, we want to allocate X amount of dollars to supporting nonprofits in our community and come up with a program that would be open to all nonprofits, because a lot of nonprofits were left out and I don't want them feeling snubbed by the city. They have their own needs, and the pandemic's been tough on them as well in terms of fundraising and being sustainable organizations. And so I'm just wondering if we could earmark a portion of that money, or can give consideration to earmarking a portion of that money to a program that would be open to nonprofits to apply and demonstrate why they would need that money and how they would use that money can benefit our community. And then one reiteration is us potentially using a portion of that money to go towards sewer capital improvements if need be. But I realize we also have some money potentially coming from the county wastewater coming back to us.
Coming back, there's
so that's
potential state and federal granting. So
we're going to get a report out soonish on that. The reason why I bring that up is I think it'd be great the sooner that we can roll back that 20% sewer rate increase from earlier this year, the better for our residents. That can provide relief for our residents, as well as manufacturers, which hopefully they'd use those cost savings to raise wages and entice people to work. But I just wanted to bring that up. I know that that's not a survey question, and most people aren't going to be like, yes, put some of this money towards sewer. So I just wanted to bring that back to the forefront. But maybe if you could speak to your thoughts on that program for the nonprofits or the farmers market, if you're aware of what the thought was with regard to paring back the revenue replacement, because we weren't fully taking advantage of the revenue replacement for the farmers market.
I'll have to look into that for you. I don't know the answer, and we'll definitely take into consideration your other ideas about the nonprofits and the sewers.
Okay.
Sewer fund for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Anything additional on this item or any new business to bring before we go to public comment? Very good. At this time, public comment is open. Members of the community are invited up to talk on any topic. Each individual is asked to give their name and address. You have 3 minutes to address the commission. We do not engage in dialogue or debate at this time, but any particular questions or concerns, as need be, can be referred to the appropriate staff member, or, of course, make arrangements to have a sit down or a cuppa, with one of your, favorite elected officials. So at this time, Mr. Rappaport.
I'm Roger Rappaport. I live at 2441 Westwood. During the past week, I've had a chance to talk to all of you. Thank you. I was particularly interested in the dialogue that we've just finished. Two things I want to say. First, we have two members of the commission who actually do this kind of survey research work, or have done it. One of them you just heard from. I would strongly recommend that you take advantage of his experience. He's been very modest about what he does, and I think the staff and the commission would benefit greatly from simply listening to what he does day to day and finding out the success he's had. The other success story that I want to point out, we had a tremendous success with the Boys and Girls Club Phil Balducci study, which worked beautifully. The building was sold. The city didn't have to put up one dime to make this happen, although I'm glad to hear that you are interested in additional support. That's a terrific outcome, a win for the whole city. It wouldn't have happened if we hadn't hired a survey research company. Leanne, Deputy Manager, Frank, who's not here tonight, all of you, even if you don't ever hire a survey research company, I think in the process that we're in, because this is ongoing, it wouldn't hurt to listen to what they do. Steve, many of your colleagues at other cities hire these guys all the time. I know that many of you have used them in other walks of life. It doesn't hurt to see how they do it, particularly on this low turnout thing. You had a question about How do they get, Eric, about how do they get past the phone problem, right? The spam problem. I have the answer. Two companies wrote me the letter today that do this work. They pay $30 to $35 an hour to have these people call and get people to answer the questions that you've been asking about turnout. Put them to work for you, you know? Why not? If they know how to do it and they can get good data and get to the people who didn't answer and create a representative survey, and it represents all the communities, including neighborhoods like McLaughlin, that had 8 people respond to this survey, and they can get 200, more power to them. We win. So I'm going to send all of you some suggestions. I've gotten letters from these people today. They would love to present their ideas. These people are zealots about what they do. They have all the work in the world they need. They don't need these jobs, but I think it would be really great for the whole community to have an opportunity. And again, I want to reiterate, Michael does this for a living. What he's talking about, he actually does. Mercy has had a huge success story because of the kind of work he does. Let's take advantage of the people we have in our community who really know what they're doing. Finally, I just want to thank everybody for this very constructive discussion and for the fact that you're going to be releasing these documents soon. And we hope that this leads to many millions of more dollars fairly allocated to other things when we get the infrastructure money, and who knows what other gifts are going to happen. Maybe Steve Jobs' widow or Jeff Bezos' ex will just decide to drop $1 billion into Muskegon. You never know. It's been happening elsewhere.
If that happens, I'll buy you a steak.
All right. We're ready to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger. And my best to Marty, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have another request from Mr. Bailey on a non-agenda item. Please, sir.
Good evening again. My name is Ed Bailey. I reside at 1410 East Harbortown Circle. Purpose of my second appearance here tonight is to address what I feel are violations of the Harbortown PUD-LR. In May of 2020, I came home from a volleyball practice to see a flatboat unloading a shed directly across from my residence. The next morning, I called the planning department and spoke to Mr. Franzik. When I posed the question of what's going on, his response was that it was all legal since it has passed the Planning Commission, and I received a letter about it about a public hearing. We ended the phone call with him promising to call me back with the date of the Planning Commission meeting so I could research it. As of tonight, I've still not received that phone call as I was promised. 13 months later, I found out why. It was because it never went before the Planning Commission. To quote a June 9th email from Mr. Franzik, it looks like I was incorrect and it was just approved at the staff level. They received their building permit after all of our departments reviewed the plan. Since it was such a small building, it was already a marina, I suppose at the time I just thought this was the correct route. It looks like I made an error, end quote. An error that violated the Harbortown PUD. How is this shed a building? If it was a building, wouldn't they have to meet the building code? Footings so many feet down or a slab so many inches thick? I'm not a builder, but I certainly know that 3 2x8s stacked on top of each other does not constitute a foundation. In researching for tonight, I noticed the Pigeon, who took over the marinas, the yacht club, and put their hotel in, was required to have a public hearing for the change of business. Yet a new business takes over and no public hearing. Also in section 1800 of the zoning code on page 135, there is a list of 5 buildings that can be built on the property. Boat rental is not one of them. I know there could be more information about this subject if I could access the Harbortown PUD document. After an exhaustive search online, I went in person to the planning department. After requesting to look at the PUD, the answer given was I would need a FOIA due to the many amendments in it. This is strange since your zoning code on the website has 17 pages of amendments. Why do I need to FOIA a building code? So where does this leave us in this age of transparency? I would like a response from the city to the following questions. Number 1, how does a $14,000 shed end up in the middle of a PUD with 300,000 to $400,000 condos? Number two, when is the Harbortown PUD going to be followed with consistency, such as with public hearings and all the other things that are requested of a PUD? Number three, if it is truly a building, as stated in the email, how is it that building codes are being violated? And number four, how can a public document that is a part of the zoning code not be available to the public unless one makes a FOIA request? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And Mr. Bailey, yes, we do have your phone number. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
You'll be expect contact.
Okay, thank you so much.
You got it. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to any issue? Mike, I already saw you already. No, come right on up.
Michael Hawes, 903 Turner Avenue, Muskegon, Michigan. Good evening again. You guys have had me come up here and speak to you many, many times over many years lately. I've given you kudos when you've done right. I've told you when I believe that you've been wrong. So you're going to get both of them tonight. On the plus side, our city has made great strides in coming back. And that's all in part of the mayor, the commissioners, staff. Everybody has worked to help rebuild Muskegon. And it's not just Muskegon, because we weren't just the only ones affected. It was Muskegon, the townships, the county, the state. We've come a long ways back. Congratulations, you've done an outstanding job. Now, when it comes to all these new buildings, I keep hearing on the rentals that they're basing this on, I had this worded correctly, median income for the city. Is that correct on some of the rentals for the lower income? Well, my understanding is the median income of the city, or that the number that you're using, has been based on the county. Well, that would include the townships. It would include Norton Shores, who have higher income than the people here. There's low-income people here that are not going to meet the qualifications to be able to rent some of these places because it's showing a higher median income than what's actually exists in our city. We need to address this and look into it. That's my pluses and my minuses. Congratulations on you. Thank you for doing such a fantastic job. Keep up the work, and I'm going to keep an eye on you. You know I'm here. I'm here just to do that. Have a wonderful night.
But, you know, what's a little eyeballing amongst friends, right? Thanks, Michael. Are there any other members of the community that would like to address the commission at this time? If not, Vice Mayor, take us home.
I move to adjourn.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Okay, Mike, you can take me out for dinner now. Thank you, everyone. It's great to see everybody.
What do we?
In the evening. Friday, sunny. Highs in the upper 70s.